Okay. Clap one on three. 1, 2, 3. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of True Crime and Cocktails. We're so glad that you're here. As always, I am your host, Lauren Ash, and as always, I am joined by my co-hostess with the mostess, Christy Oxborrow. How you feeling?
Oh, I'm buzzing.
Well, it should be noted for those who are listening and not viewing that young Christy Lynn here is donning some new duds.
I am. Thank you for duds, by the way.
You're very
Donning
welcome.
duds. You know how much I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yes. So, for those who haven't followed the saga, if I may, um, over on my Instagram page, I went into 7-Eleven at some point a few weeks ago, and they had these fuzzy slap bracelets in like a mystery ball. And it was like, what one are you going to get? Well, I ended up buying them, and I got so excited that I opened them like I drove to a random abandoned parking lot, and I opened them in this parking lot. And it ended up like I tagged 7-Eleven Canada. Every single person who watched that video tagged 7-Eleven and were like, oh my God, she loves you so much, whatever. Well, long story short, 7-Eleven reached out.
Thank God.
They were like, we love your video. We think this is great. They commented on the video. They liked it. They spoke with me in DMs. They were like, this is a link to our store. Tell us what you want. I panicked because I didn't, because that just like that's like sending a kid into like an 80s candy store with 20 bucks, because then the
Mm,
possibilities are endless. Sending
right.
them in now with 20 isn't going to get them as much. But like I was just like, what do I do? I don't want to ask for so much. I feel greedy. I don't want to, like, it was just, I didn't know what to do. So I was like, I don't even know. So I mentioned this beautiful hat. I wanted something white for the summer heat.
Of
I
course.
mentioned this beautiful retro logo shirt and a hoodie. And gosh darn it, they all arrived at my home.
I love this for you.
I then did a video of me unboxing it also in my car, because that's just a thing now. And 7-Eleven liked it. I'm just pulling up the screenshot I
Sure.
took of the message so I can make sure to give exact wording.
Of course. We
Ah,
care about facts here on True Crime and Cocktails.
we do. 7-Eleven Canada said, we couldn't adore you more if we tried.
Come on.
I absolutely died. Like when they first started DMing me, I told them I was fangirling, and they were like, what are you talking about? We're fangirling over you. And I was like, I don't know who runs your socials, 7-Eleven Canada, but give them a raise.
To whoever the young person
It must be.
is that's running
Yeah.
that account, they're
Mhm.
doing a good job.
They are. They are. And the
Yeah.
point is, this is now 4 years in the making of
Yeah.
me on this show talking about getting hats.
I was just going to say, if you're an OG listener of the podcast, at the very beginning when we were podcast babies 4 years ago, God, it was a
Yeah,
simpler time. In some ways, a more difficult time, but in many ways, a more simple time.
it
Anyway, the
was.
point is this. We were talking about getting sponsors, and Christy was like, I just want some places to send me hats. And that's when I was like, maybe we aim higher, but that was a bigger conversation. The point is this, it's
Sure.
a full circle moment. How
Yeah.
beautiful. Look at this in this
Oh,
pristine white hat. I mean, it
oh
looks
yeah.
great on you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so tickled. So tickled. I was gonna also wear the hoodie so I could reveal the t-shirt underneath, but it's like 1,000 degrees here. And yeah, that's not gonna happen.
It's hot.
Even with like a cold air blowing at my feet, I can't.
I
I
took being out for a walk either today or yesterday. I can't remember because days time means
Oh,
nothing
sure.
anymore. Um, and I was wearing my Lisa Frank Crocs.
Beautiful.
Oh, they're a gorgeous item. But I realized about 3 seconds into said walk that I had left on, some socks, like a no-show sock, short sock.
Ooh.
And, 10 seconds into that walk, I was like, "I can't continue." I was like, I my feet are on fire. It's
Mm,
so hot. It's
yeah.
so, so hot. Um, yeah.
You also tend to do socks less than, like, I would do.
Well, here's the thing. Yes, but
Oh,
I, uh, I got PCOS. People know this if they listen to the show. It's your hormones. It's a disease of the endocrine
mm,
system. It affects your hormones. My hormones over the last year-ish have, like, regulated, and my temperature is all over the place now. So it
oh,
used to be that I ran super hot. I was always hot. I was always
of
sockless.
course.
Yeah, now I go through being very cold. And
Sure.
here's a fun fact. I can't go to bed without socks on. Now, I possibly may remove them after being in bed for 3 to 5 minutes. But and then I can sleep. But for some reason, if my
Mhm.
feet don't acclimatize to a certain level of warmth in the bed, I will not fall asleep.
Oh, sure.
So bizarre.
I've found only in the last, like, probably just this year so far, for the show, when we finish recording, like, late at night, and I go to bed, even though this room gets so hot, when I get in that bed, I'm on an iceberg. I've never been colder in my life, and then it's just like then I'm putting on layers of clothes to go to bed, regardless as
Right.
to the time of year.
Yeah.
And I'll have you know, I am not ashamed. My socks are ankle socks, and that's what I like, young people. And if you look at the ankle socks and immediately know my age, guess what? I assume you know my age based on my gray hairs. So I'm okay with that. Don't
Yeah.
take my ankle socks. You can mock them all you like and prefer the tall socks. The point is, youngsters, I'm keeping these ankle socks and you can pry them from my cold, dead hands.
You never know what one of us is gonna get passionate about on an episode of the show. You
Yeah.
never know what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Today, ankle socks, and that's not
Oh, yeah.
something I saw coming.
Yeah, ankle socks, I think I really got into a zone within the last 5 years, and they're just I do just prefer them because I don't I don't need a full sock, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
know. Um, but you mentioned something, and this is gonna, probably be a lot much longer conversation.
I live for it.
First of all, Lisa Frank Crocs, we're gonna wanna see them. And
Oh,
second
yeah.
of all, when do I get into Crocs? Because I've never stepped a foot in a Croc. I've heard there are, like, all, like, the fun little 7-Eleven and McDonald's and Disney character and whatever little things you can get, whatever they're called, to put in the Croc.
Yeah.
I've heard about those because I think I've seen some 7-Eleven ones. Maybe that's why that's the first thing on my mind. Um, but then I'm just like, should I look into this? Because I would love all
Here's
my loves on the top of my shoe.
here's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
I have 2 different well, no, I have multiple. I have a top 2 favorite house shoe, and I'm so glad that you brought this up because you're right, it's gonna be a long conversation. My
Already with
most
house shoe, you're
Thank
killing
you.
it.
Well, here's the thing, I have hardwood floors, and
Mm,
I have lots of rugs, but I have found I can't walk on hardwood for that long. It just
sure.
makes my feet hurt. It's the strangest thing, and I guess I've always had carpet everywhere I've lived. This is probably the first time I've had hardwood, and yeah, it's so funny. It's like my back hurts, my knees hurt, like, I have to have a house shoe on from, like, the minute I get out of bed. Um,
Sure.
so I'll put these into the screen. I can't reach the Crocs, but
Of
my
course.
number 1 choice for a house shoe is these
Oh,
OOFOS, recovery sandals. Now this is for the athletes out there, and I am not one. But what it is it's walking on a dream and a lot of arch support. So these,
oh,
like I also have a pair that's completely black. The logo is black as well. so that I can wear them into public without anyone commenting. People have commented about the blue with the white logo, uh, at times when I've been to work. So I'm happy to have a pair of orthopedic sandals that are not as, noticeable. Now, I know what everyone's thinking. This is an ad. It's not, folks. I cannot stress this enough. I haven't received a dime from these people. If anything, I've spent a lot of money on multiple pairs of these. But anyway, so I was very skeptical because I have also never really gotten into Crocs. I was very skeptical, but when
Sure.
I saw they had these rainbow Lisa Frank ones, and I was having a little mermaid, desert disco themed
Oh,
party,
of course.
no big D, I was like, I have to have these. And here's the thing I'll say, they don't have the same level of support as these recovery sandals. However, they are a bit of a dream because you can slide them
Oh.
on. They've got air vents, but they're not open-toed, which if
I
you're
do
worried
like that.
about a toe stub, as I am because 'cause I'm a clumsy bitch, that's a great selling factor, and the flare is very fun. Yes, you can get the little, I
Oh.
don't know what they're called, but you can get the little things to put on top, and what I'll say ultimately is very, very comfortable. Very,
Oh.
very comfortable, and it's nice because you can put them in sport mode, I believe some call it,
Yes,
where
I've
you
heard of
move the,
that.
but then also you can just, and I know one of, your oldest is a Croc man.
He is, and
Yeah.
that's the joke. Because for years, like, when Crocs came out, they were a joke, like, everybody was like, "Oh, Crocs, loser," and then all of a sudden, my oldest started wearing them, and he's, like, finger on the pulse, like, he will start wearing certain things, and then, like, 2 months later, everybody's wearing them, and
Yeah.
so it's like he knows, like, he sees and feels the trends coming, and he's, like, there at the beginning. So he's been doing Crocs for a while, and it's just now it's just the thing, and they're
Yeah.
everywhere, and I think I'd like a house shoe.
Yeah.
I think you may have sold me, with simply the word "flare." I couldn't be, happier for the amount of times you said recovery sandals. That really tickled me. Um, but yeah, I mean, I just think, would I like something just like a walking around my house kind of a shoe? I think I would.
I
I
honest yeah.
stubbed my baby toe getting into the tub, and I'm
No.
gonna tell you, I'm not 100% sure how I pulled it off. It was one of those, like, there was the tub, and I got in, and I didn't fully put
Yeah.
all foot in, and the little toe just slammed right into it, and I spent that shower thinking I may have sprained that toe because I was like, I feel rushing fluid because, of course, when I get hurt, I become Marlin from, Finding Nemo, but I'm immediately like, "Something's wrong, rushing fluid, this is it, like, I'm gonna have to run to a hospital." No, it was just like, barely anything, by the next day, but the point is, I'm a stubber.
Yeah.
I will stub on everything. I hit every single doorknob down my hallway. So that's just who I am in general. So to protect my feet at least, that feels right. But I'm like, "Oh, I maybe I need to look into like a Croc specific store so I can see the variety of colors to then decide where I'm gonna go."
I mean, 100%. I just float to you like, do you need to go to a Croc store or do you need to just look at the McDonald's ones or the 7-Eleven ones?
Well, that's the thing. I know there are little 7-Eleven flair. I think there are 7-Eleven ones.
There's 7-Eleven
Um,
Crocs.
because friend of the podcast, Leslie Seiler,
Yes.
sent me, um, it was a little while ago. Oh, going through my messages, seeing 7-Eleven in there still kills me. Um, she had sent me something. Oh, there it is. She sent me these bad boys,
Buzz Lightyear.
a
Yeah.
Buzz Lightyear Croc. And then it's like, but are Crocs good on a long distance or are they just good for like a short term sort of thing?
I think if you're doing a long distance, I'm gonna come back once again to the
The
recovery
recovery.
sandals. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I prefer them sometimes to a sneaker. I mean, I'll wear a recovery sandal
Oh.
to Disney. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, see, there we go. So
Yeah,
basically, you need an indoor and an outdoor, so you slip in from one into the other, and away
100%.
you go.
That being said, I will wear the Crocs. I mean, I've worn the Crocs on walks. I've been on a
A
Croc
crock
walk.
walk.
Um, but yeah, like I walk the dog with them. I've worn them for a full day, like out running errands, stuff like that for sure. Yeah. I think a house shoe is gonna change your life. Like, I honestly feel like you're gonna follow up and be like, "My lower back feels great. My ankles feel good. I'm not stubbing myself." Like, I couldn't not that I'm trying to hard pressure you, but I guess I'm trying to hard pressure you.
Oh, I get that. I mean the carpet in my home, it's just in the basement.
Right.
So everywhere upstairs, it's all hard floor, which is why I'm always in a sock
Yeah.
because I can't go bare. Most of my family, they, they don't they don't want a sock. They never want a sock. My husband's like, if I never wear a sock again, it's fine. My middle son, just like very little. My youngest, the second a pair comes off, another pair goes on. Like he would swim in them if I let him. Like he wants to wear socks at all times, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But what we're saying is I need to look into a house shoe. I'm gonna write that down.
I think look into a house shoe, peruse the McDonald's Crocs. Take a look at what they got to offer.
I'm writing down. No, I was gonna write down peruse house shoe, and then I was like, how do you spell peruse? And then I threw myself in. Yeah, well,
Well, listen, I have one more question for you.
yes, please.
And this is coming out of absolute left field. I have a question for you about hit major motion picture The Terminator.
I'm flattered and I'm
Yep.
honored that you're trusting me that I may have an answer for this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's an opinion. It's an opinion, so you're
Oh,
gonna have an
okay.
opinion.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
So
Because I
if
thought this was gonna be trivia, and I was like,
no,
it's
no,
gonna
no,
be, but I could do it.
no. This is an opinion-based question, and I preface this by saying, listen, folks, if you haven't seen the original Terminator, first of all, what are you doing? Um, there's gonna be some spoilers in what I'm about to say, but the movie was released in the '80s, so,
Yeah. Oh, you're
you know,
safe. There
I think
we
I'm safe.
can't live the life of we can't spoil a movie that's 40 years old. We can't
Yeah,
live that life.
yeah.
If your question is, does Blanche like Kyle Reese? The answer is yes.
Oh, listen, that was not my question because I already knew the answer.
Yeah, of course you did.
No, no, here's my question. So I was talking about this with my sweet boyfriend, and he because if I'm being honest, and I won't get into all of this, but like Terminator 2 is a very large part of our relationship,
Of course. Of
which
course.
is just the truth. And so the Terminator, the first one also. Now, what we determined or what I discovered was I watched the original Terminator way more times as a child than I remember. And so I know that movie, and I've seen Terminator 2 many times also, but I really know the first Terminator.
Sure.
And here's what I pose to you because I said
Oh,
this to him as though I thought this is what everyone thought, and his jaw dropped, and he was like, I can't believe what I'm hearing. So, as we know, skip ahead if you don't want the spoiler. As we know, John Connor
yes.
chooses his father, essentially,
Oh, yeah.
because he's like, you have to go back in time to help my mother. He
Yeah.
knows how it goes. He knows that Kyle Reese is getting sent back in time and that that's going to be his father. So he's chosen his
Yes.
own father.
Yeah.
So to me, watching it, I'm like, Kyle Reese also knows that his mission, like that has to have been a part of the conversation that maybe we didn't fully see between them. It's like there has to have been like, "You're my father, you have to go and do this." Like, I always assumed that Kyle Reese knew that he had to have sex with Sarah Connor coming back in time. That was my assumption. And
Okay.
that because that was his goal, because he was a soldier and he was raised into a world that was at war with the machines. Like, he was born into that world,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I feel like he knew that like, that was his goal.
Huh.
And now when I was talking about this to my boyfriend's like, "It was love. It was love." And I guess I'm saying, I don't know, like, what do you think?
I I don't know how to tell you this. I always just assumed that he was told he had to come back and protect Sarah at all costs, and the draw for Sarah was just so big that I don't I didn't think that when he sent back that Kyle knew. I don't think I guess I didn't wanna give another spoiler. It's a 40-year-old movie. Um, I just always assumed Kyle never knew that he was the father.
What's wrong with me then? I mean, that's
Well,
essentially the same. I feel like that's the same answer as my boyfriend gave. Like, why am I
yeah,
this is why I'm into true crime, because 'cause I'm writing a story. There's always a motive.
I just assumed, and I mean, I just I think it's I'm such a hopeless romantic, I wanna believe that he came back and was in love with her, but John would have had the tapes that Sarah made
Right.
where she was talking about how much she loved him, all of these things, and so I think that John was assuming that the love was strong enough on both sides that if he sent Kyle back, it would just be an automatic they'd bone because they're absolutely gonna fall in love. So I just assumed, yes, that I assumed the conversation never happened, and he had no idea that John was his son.
Huh.
Yeah. Look, this feels like those flashcards where it's like, what sort of trauma do you have based on what you see?
Yeah, you're right. This is like an ink blot test for both of us for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you brought movies up, which number 1, God, I think we should have a movie podcast
Yeah,
because
listen, it's a
we love it more
passion.
than, anything. We just, don't have the time, or the follow through sometimes. Um, but something came up the other day that I wrote down so I remember to ask you.
Oh,
Now, something I enjoy is a genre called a body swap comedy.
of course. Sure.
You know,
Sure.
like a Freaky Friday sort of
Yep.
situation. So, I was looking through other movies that were labeled as body swap comedies, and I was like, "Yes, please." Because I was like, "I wanna make sure I watch more of them because I'm tickled by it." I
Sure.
don't know why. Like the Vince Vaughn one, Freaky, where
Oh,
Vince Vaughn
yeah.
like a serial killer switches bodies with, like, a teenage girl, delightful. So I'm like, "Here we go, I'm into it." Well, one of the movies listed as a body swap, the movie Big,
I knew you were gonna say big.
and I paused and went,
Yeah.
"I don't know," and
No.
then I was like, "I'm bringing it to the expert."
I I think by definition,
Yes,
body swap, that's 2 people changing places.
correct. Yeah,
The fact I mean, I guess you could argue that his child self swapped bodies with adult self, but I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that body didn't already exist. The magic aged him.
correct. Oh, correct. Another one on that list, 13 Going on 30.
No.
I'm like, "But who's she swapping with?" Like, again,
No.
it's just it doesn't sit with me, and I don't
It
like it.
it feels like people are trying to come up with more body swap movies
Sure.
because there isn't an infinite amount of them, or there isn't a ton, right?
There's not a lot, so when goofs like me, go to, like, IMDb and click on that in the hopes of seeing all the movies of that genre so we can watch more of them, they have to add stuff so we don't just realize there's only, like, 5. I mean,
Right,
there's more than 5, but there's not
right.
many.
I mean, I think you just have to change the name of the genre. If the genre
Sure.
was out of body experience
Okay.
or or
Yeah.
same brain, new body.
Same brain, new body.
Same brand new body.
Look,
If that was the
yeah,
genre, then I would say that those absolutely count. I mean, and by that stretch also, Face Off counts, but I guess Face Off kinda counts either way.
interesting. Well, because they swap faces for sure, and
I
then get
guess they don't
plastic
swap
surgery.
full bodies, you're right. Although, I mean,
My favorite thing, I think what I love about a body swap comedy, is I just like very weirdly specific genres.
mm,
Like one of my favorites are, paranormal love stories. I just I just like, you know, like Over Her Dead Body. The one with, Paul Rudd and Lake Bell and Eva Longoria, where the fiancé dies and Paul Rudd can't move on, so Lake Bell is a psychic, but she's not really. But, she I can't think of a she wants she's trying to pass herself off as a psychic, but ghost Eva Longoria comes in and is like, "You need to help this man move on, so I'm gonna help you pretend you're a psychic and tell him to move on." But then Lake Bell falls for Paul Rudd, and it's a whole thing. That's an interest of mine. Like 90% Paul Rudd, but like definitely 10% weird genre. I like a very specific genre.
I, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say I'm not going out on a limb. I've never heard of that film, is the truth.
No kidding.
No,
I mean,
but
sure.
I feel again that my movie genre interests are maybe not as niche as yours. So,
Oh, you don't like
um,
a paranormal romance?
a paranormal romance is not something I would have
Mhm.
even considered as a genre, but now that I think about
Sure.
it, yeah, they exist. Ghost, I feel like, is also under
Oh,
that.
sure, sure.
Now the Lake House I've never seen, but is that under that umbrella?
It is. I actually have
Okay.
a document that has all the ones because my husband teased me so bad about loving paranormal romance.
Yeah.
He was the one that started it where I said I loved this movie and he was like, "Okay," and I loved another one and he was like, "Oh, both have like ghosts and love story." He's like, "You love a paranormal romance." And I was like, "I don't know. The list is long now."
Right.
Like Heart and Souls.
You love that movie. You
I
love that movie since we
love
were
that movie.
kids.
I
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
because when you go into it with not a clue of what it's about, for the first 20 minutes, you're like, "What the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
I don't understand this at all." And then
Right.
all of a sudden, you're charmed. It's a young Robert Downey Jr. How are you not charmed?
Wow.
But I love it. It's the movie we watched before Jurassic Park at a double feature.
Hey.
So it was one of those like, it doesn't matter what it is, put it on. Loved it. And Jurassic Park is one of my favorites of all time. So needless to say, that was like the night of my life, except for leaving the theater at midnight and looking for T-Rexes because I was genuinely concerned that a T-Rex was gonna like come around a building. Uh, yeah, that was a real experience.
It's interesting because you talk about how when you were older and you saw Jurassic Park that you were terrified, but now
Yep.
it was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I'm terrified." Now it's sounding like you were terrified as a child as well.
Oh, I was terrified. I just feel Spielberg knocked it out of the park on that movie. I just the sound, the size, the look of the dinosaurs, especially those T-Rexes. I mean, I can't remember all of them, but the sound of the T-Rex is so many different animal sounds mixed together. One of them is a penguin. I don't know, like I've tried to hear penguin in that. I don't know if I know what a penguin sounds like. Um, but there's just something about that sound that they got it perfect because it scares the shit out of me. But somehow I'm obsessed with that movie and I love it so much. And same with Heart and Souls, which does not have dinosaurs.
And that's
So,
a shame.
yeah.
That's a
Well,
shame. Now I gotta
not
ask
everything.
you, you're in all the gear. What you drinking over there? You got a Slurpee on the go?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I only had so much time to go and I wasn't going to get anything and then I was like, "Mm, maybe." So I did get a Pepsi slush
Okay.
from a non 7-Eleven location.
This is the day to lie, I think.
Well, it's kind of hard when I'm
Right.
holding up a very I should have just kept another 7-Eleven cup. The point is, I was at 7-Eleven this afternoon. I was at 7-Eleven yesterday afternoon. I was
Right.
at 7-Eleven the day before that, and I'll be at 7-Eleven tomorrow. So I I give them a lot of my business.
Yeah. No, no, no. Listen, I'm
No,
just teasing you. You you
no.
you owe
It
them you
did I did realize what I was doing in the moment and went, "Well, that's ridiculous," but
but listen, that's why we love you. What's going on with me? I'm so glad that you asked. I've got giant water over here, and I'm back into the Sunny D vodka seltzers. That's the kind
Ooh.
of night we're gonna have. And I'm already one deep, and we're only a half an hour in. So buckle in, dear listeners, because no one knows what's gonna happen when Ash gets uh sunny. That's what I was gonna say. No one knows what's gonna happen when
Oh,
Ash gets sunny.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I actually hope that if you ever order them, like, verbally out in public, that you call it a vodka Sunny.
Ooh, that's an
A
opportunity.
Sunny V
What's the V?
for vodka.
I thought you meant virgin, and I was like, "What?"
Oh, this is immediately taking us back to Terminator and you seeing one thing and everyone else seeing something else. There is gonna be someone out there who's like, "I thought he knew sex was his objective." There's
Not
gonna
the
be
only
someone.
objective. I don't want it to make it sound like I listen. Oh god, yeah, we're gonna hear about it in the comments.
No.
Um, listen, uh, let's get into the case. So this week this episode is Scandal Elon Musk, and yes, part one. Because, dear
Yeah.
listeners, there is so much information about Elon
Oh,
Musk that we decided last minute we got to split this into two because otherwise this is going to be a 4 hour episode, which sounds like a dream to some, but trust me, trust us, this is for the best.
oh,
Um, this is, of course, May patrons poll pick. If you go over to patreon.com/true crime and cocktails, you can learn more about our subscription based service over there where you can vote on one of the episodes that we cover on this main feed once a month. So if you don't know who Elon Musk is, I don't know how you have access to the internet or you found this podcast, but it's possible. It's possible, maybe
yeah.
other places in the world. So we're going to give you a little bit of background right now. Elon Musk is a businessman and entrepreneur best known for his involvement in SpaceX and Tesla and for being a total boob on Twitter. I don't pre-read these.
Uh-huh.
She's not wrong. This loose cannon and all around jackass, Christie's words, not mine, is said to be worth $221 billion. So, in a classic Christie deep dive, not only are we going to look into Elon as a person, but we're also going to look into his family and the companies that have made him one of the richest men in the world. And with so much information to cover, this will be the first in a two-part series. So, who is Elon Musk? What's the deal with his family? And he has how many children? Christy Oxborrow investigates.
I knew what I was doing. I I I, uh, I want to say a kind word about him. There just aren't any. So,
That's more than fair.
yeah. So disclaimer, out the gate. This episode will contain mentions of intimate partner violence, child physical abuse, and infant death. So trigger warning for those who need it. Now, again, like there is so much information about this man. And I usually like to present everything in like a linear sort of timeline, but this is going to have to be different. So, to save my brain from completely breaking, I have decided to talk about certain aspects of Elon's life in sections to try and make it less confusing. Basically, overall, by the time we're done, we'll have gone back and forth in time. And I know that friend of the podcast, Ben Feldman, absolutely hates that.
He does.
But this is the easiest way for me, to
Yeah.
get this organized. And just I feel likely the easiest way to make it more enjoyable for everyone all around.
Yeah.
Um, and again, just by saying there's so much information does not even come close to how much there is. I was drowning in it. So I'm going to do my best to kind of focus on highlights because otherwise we're going to discuss this man for months, and that sounds exhausting in
Yeah.
so many ways. So, first, we're going to start off with Elon's parents. His mother, May Haldeman, was born April 19th, 1948, in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Get out.
Yeah, so shout out to the capital of the province that I call home, because it certainly does not come up organically very often on this show.
Right.
Yeah. Also, apparently, it was he still had relatives. He had relatives somewhere in the Moose Jaw area, and there's a photo out there somewhere of Elon in somebody's house in Moose Jaw in like the 90s or something. I was not
Huh.
personally in Moose Jaw in the 90s, but it doesn't matter. People were still excited to know he was here decades ago. Doesn't matter. Point is, so his mother, fun fact, she was a twin and one of 5 children. In 1950, May's chiropractor father became very disenchanted with Canadian politics, and he believed the country was in a state of moral decline. So he decided to uproot his family and move to South Africa.
Oh.
I don't know why he chose South Africa. I mean, I immediately Googled to look at photos, and yeah, I mean, it's gorgeous. So I get that. It's just, it feels like that's a very significant move, especially pre internet. Like moving to another town pre internet feels like a nightmare to me. I can't imagine moving to another continent entirely.
Well, also this would have been this is this is a long time ago.
Yeah, 1950.
1950. I don't know enough about the history of South Africa, but I also feel like if you're concerned about politics, like I know that there's a that's an understatement to say there's been some political things in South Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not at that time. I apologize for my ignorance, but yeah, that's a big choice.
Oh, yeah. And just know, I know people get annoyed. Yes, he did live in South Africa during apartheid. I'm not going to talk about it
Right.
because, again, it doesn't involve Elon or the jackass that he is. And so I was like, I've got to make spaces somewhere. So,
Right.
but I do know it happened.
Oh yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
right. Like yeah, it was a real choice.
Yeah.
So May became a finalist in a 1969 Miss South Africa beauty competition and went on to do various modeling jobs. Her modeling career is still currently ongoing as May became the oldest Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover model in 2022. She was
No way.
74 at the time. Her reign, unfortunately, was short lived. She was surpassed for the title in May 2023 by 81-year-old Martha Stewart. They also dress them in similar colors. I've done a side by side of the covers that I'll post on our socials, but it's just weird how they almost seem styled similarly. I don't know if that's on
Interesting.
purpose. Either way, May has written a memoir, worked as a registered dietitian, and in 2023, she became a global ambassador for the Oppo smartphone. But the reason I'm talking about her today is because when May was attending Clapham High School in Pretoria, she met fellow student ugh, Errol Musk. Errol and May got married in 1970 when they were 24 and 22, respectively. They had 3 children, including Elon in 1971, Kimball in 1972, and Tosca in 1974. Errol studied electromechanical engineering at the University of Pretoria. Eventually, he started his own lucrative engineering business while also owning an auto parts store. In 1981, Errol got into politics and became the nominee for the Progressive Federal Party. He resigned 2 years later. Errol and May got divorced in 1979, and while Errol later blamed the divorce on his multiple affairs. May said the affairs were only half the problem because Errol was allegedly quite abusive.
Mm.
In 2019, May said, quote, "Everybody I knew called him the pig because he treated me so badly in public. I was scared to tell anyone. I was embarrassed. He told me over and over that I was stupid, ugly, boring. He was very rich, but he made sure I had nothing. Once the kids were living with me, they visited their father some weekends. He would throw out everything they arrived with so that I had to buy them all new clothes and school things when they returned. Then he'd sue me and say I was an unfit parent."
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
After their divorce, Errol was incredibly wealthy, and not just from his businesses, also because he allegedly owned half of an emerald mine, there we go, in Zambia. So he had money, but his ex-wife had to work 5 jobs to support their children. The idea that she was busting her ass trying to make ends meet, and Errol, who had more money than he knew what to do with, would purposely make her life financially harder, is just enraging, in general. At some point after, Errol was briefly married to a woman named Sue. Then in 1992, Errol married Heidi, oh boy, Bezudenhout, Bezuden, Be, oh, Bezudenhout. Wowza. She was a widowed mother of 3. At the time, Errol also had 3 children. So it was like a real life version of the Brady Bunch. Errol and Heidi then had 2 daughters together, Alexandra, known as Allie, in 1993, and Asha, known as Rose, in 1999. Errol and Heidi separated in 2003 and officially divorced in 2010. But Errol says they were married for a very short time, but they lived together as a married couple for 11 years. And to me, that doesn't feel like a short time. But I really just think Errol is trying to make that relationship seem less serious because in 2016, 6 years after divorcing Heidi, Errol reconnected with Jana Biesendout, Heidi's daughter from her first marriage. Jana was 4 when her mother
No.
and Errol got married. And in a horrifying move we didn't see coming in 2017, Errol and Jana had a son named Elliot. Now, we'll ignore the fact that at the time of the child's birth, Errol was 69 and Jana was 29, um, mainly because we have more pressing things to focus on, like the fact that for 18 years, Jana was Errol's stepdaughter.
Yep.
Now, Errol's children were unsurprisingly pissed when they heard about the baby, especially given that they considered Jana their sister for most of their lives.
Oh my God.
They said Errol and Heidi did not differentiate between child and stepchild, and the kids were all treated equally. But Errol claimed he never considered Jana to be his daughter because she was raised away from the family. Apparently she spent some time at boarding school, but, telling a stepdaughter, "You were never a daughter to me," that's gotta sting. Uh, Elon claimed he noticed his father becoming uncomfortably attentive to Jana when she was 15. Errol says nothing inappropriate happened. He said he was equally attentive to all his children. So then, was she considered your child or not?
Great point.
Just quick question.
Mhm.
Errol said he reconnected with Jana in 2016 and that he comforted her during a breakup. He said that they were lonely, lost people, and one thing just led to another.
Oh boy.
While Errol and Elon already had a tumultuous relationship, they became completely estranged after Errol and Jana had a baby together. Elon now refers to his father as evil and a terrible human being. Elon claims Errol lost all his money in the 90s and that he and his brother gave Errol money on the condition he wouldn't do bad things. Elon
Mm.
said Errol was plain evil or would plan evil and, quote, "You have no idea how bad almost every crime you could possibly think of he has done." And as someone with a true crime podcast, I'd love a list because I can I can think of a lot of crimes. Also, as someone who loves a list. So Errol said Elon was a spoiled child and their estrangement is simply Elon throwing a tantrum like a toddler. But I will also add that in 2019, Errol and Jana had a second child. So as of this record, Elon Musk has 7 biological children. In 2023, at the age of 77, Errol said he would be open to having more children if the mother was under the age of 35. Because Errol says, quote, a woman's cutoff for having children is 35, which is absolutely not true.
That's
But,
horrifying.
thankfully, dudes can have children at literally any age because, as Errol says, quote, that's what we're built for. He's just vile. Errol said that his only concern about having more children is he worries who would care for them if he died. Not to be crass, Errol, but death is inevitable. It comes for us all, and you're not immune. He's also acting like he's the main caregiver for his current children,
Yeah.
which I absolutely do not believe he is. But then again, I'm really not sure what I believe about Errol. He claimed in 1998 that a group of 7 armed men broke into his home and just immediately started opening fire. Errol managed to dodge every bullet, run to another room, get his own gun, and then kill 3 of the shooters. He claimed the rest of the men fled the scene when he started shooting. Errol shot one of the intruders in the head, and that bullet allegedly exited the guy's head and lodged itself in the chest of a second guy. So he literally killed 2 guys with 1 bullet. Then he shot a third intruder in the hallway as they tried to flee. Um, but dodging bullets from 7 guns at once and then shooting 2 guys with 1 bullet feels like a movie script to me.
Yeah.
Errol claims he was charged with manslaughter but was acquitted on grounds of self defense. The only stories about this online seem to be Errol talking about it in interviews. No, like official police reports, although they could exist and just aren't online, maybe. So maybe it did happen. I don't know if it was as dramatic as Errol is claiming.
Right.
But back to Errol's children, or specifically the oldest 3. As a reminder, Errol and May had 3 children. Tosca in 1974. She has since become a filmmaker. In 2017, she founded Passionflix, which is a female focused streaming service that features movies based on romance novels. From the best I can tell, and I could be wrong, but from the best I can tell, Tosca seems to be the level headed, non toxic sibling in her family.
Right.
So, at least there's that. Then we have Kimball, the restaurateur who was born in 1972. In 2004, he co founded The Kitchen, which is a group of 5 restaurants that source food from local farmers. 7 years later, they launched the restaurant chain Next Door, which was a community oriented, um, and its big aim was sustainability. At Next Door, Kimball said the employees were part of a family, so he arranged to have part of their paychecks put into an account called the Family Fund. The purpose of the fund was to help employees in a time of crisis. At the height of the pandemic, Nextdoor was forced to shut down for 2 weeks. Managers were given pay cuts, but the hourly paid employees were given nothing. So that's the time for the family fund to shine, right? Well, conveniently, Nextdoor executives decided that that was the moment to revise the family fund program. Employees were sent an email stating that they would each receive $400 from the fund. But if they previously applied, like everyone would have during the pandemic, um, because, unprecedented times, if you had previously applied, you had to reapply using a new application link. Um, but they never sent the link. And then 2 days later, 100 employees got laid off when Kimball closed 4 of the 11 restaurants. And not only were those employees not given any severance, when they asked about the family fund, the family fund they put money into, they were told it was for current employees only,
Ooh.
and they no longer qualified. Thankfully, the story made national news, and Kimball was eventually forced to give the employees all $400, which is a good chunk of money. But since most of those employees were already making an unlivable wage, I don't know how helpful it was. For a man whose net worth in 2021 was 700 million, it's wild to me that Kimball didn't try to help the employees more, especially, since they were a family, right?
Mm.
But then again, this is the same man who had a bunch of people fired from one of his companies because they looked like they were going to unionize. The employees fought back, and in January 2024, a district court in Colorado forced Kimball to not only reinstate those workers, but to also recognize their union. In 2022, Kimball launched Nova Sky Stories, a company that does light shows with drones. Kimball currently sits on the boards of SpaceX and Tesla, which are owned by his brother Elon. In short, it seems that Kimball is just Elon in a cowboy hat. Yeah. So we've talked about two of the children. We're getting to the third. Technically, the firstborn, even though he's bringing up the rear. Elon Reeve Musk was born June 28th, 1971, in Pretoria, South Africa. He was an awkward, lonely child who spent most of his time absorbed in books. He claims to have read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica at the age of 9. He said, quote, "I was raised by books, and then my parents," which feels psychologist hat.
Yeah.
So his love of books, combined with the fact that he was usually smaller than most of his classmates, all kind of led to very intense bullying. Elon claimed at one point he was nearly beaten to death. Unfortunately, Elon's father wasn't helpful when it came to the bullying, as he would often publicly berate his son for being a victim. According to Elon, his father was also a bully, um, which included verbal and physical abuse. And yet, when his parents first divorced, when Elon was about 10, Elon chose to live with his father, a decision that Elon claimed he only made because his father owned a computer and his mother did not.
Oh, wow.
Elon taught himself to program and even created a sci fi game called Blastar, which he sold for $500 when he was 12. Elon says he inherited his engineering skills from his father, saying, quote, "What's very difficult for others is easy for me. For a while, I thought things were so obvious that everyone must know this." But whatever natural skills Elon may have in engineering, it certainly doesn't make up for his lack of social skills. After high school, Elon briefly attended the University of Pretoria before moving to Canada in 1989 to attend Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. Elon was just 17 at the time, and for those who might question why Elon suddenly made the choice to move to another country at such a young age, it seems the decision was made so he could avoid military service, which was mandatory in South Africa until 1994. Elon obtained Canadian citizenship, and in 1992, he moved to the US, where he studied physics and business at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. Shout out to my Philadelphia Flyers. I miss you.
Hmm.
While Elon was in Pennsylvania, he started dating Jennifer Gwynn. They were together for about a year and were serious enough that they met each other's families. However, the couple struggled with long distance once Jennifer went to study abroad, so they broke up in 1994. Elon graduated with an undergraduate degree in economics, and he later earned a bachelor's degree in physics. In 1995, Elon moved to California with the plan to get his PhD in energy physics at Stanford, but he dropped out after just 2 days to launch his first company instead. And we will get into all the business nonsense later. And by later, apparently, I guess I mean in the next episode, but neither here nor there. The point is, we will get to it eventually. But first, I want to focus on Elon's personal life. Why? Because we've already talked at great length about his father's, so it only makes sense uh, to get all that personal tea first. And I'm going to tell you, brace yourselves because the tea is piping hot.
I cannot wait.
So we know Elon dated Jennifer for about a year, ending things in 1994. But it turns out prior to that, he was dating Justine Wilson. Did his relationship with Jennifer overlap with his relationship with Justine? There are no firm dates on anything, but it's absolutely more than possible, and I would not put it past him.
Mm.
It's also more than possible that neither woman knew about the other. I don't know how much either knew at the time. Elon and Justine met at Queen's University around 1991. Apparently, Elon saw Justine in the common room and asked her out for ice cream. Justine initially said yes, but later left a note on Elon's dorm room door to say she had changed her mind. Fair enough.
Interesting.
You're absolutely allowed to do that. Uh, Hours after leaving that note, Justine was studying at the student center when Elon showed up carrying 2 ice cream cones. She said, quote, "He's not a man who takes no for an answer."
Ugh.
And while at one point that might seem romantic, it's not.
Yeah. I think
But
we've been programmed to believe
oh, of course we have.
that it's romantic. The like he didn't take no for an answer is like romantic, but it's really not.
Yeah. Yeah, you're allowed to say no.
You're allowed to say no, and the no should be respected.
Yeah. Well, Elon and Justine dated long distance, which is funny because he didn't want long distance with the other one.
Yeah.
Um, but they were long distance after Elon transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. They broke up for a year when Justine moved to Japan to teach English. But Elon called her a week after she returned. Justine soon moved to California, where they got engaged and then married 5 months later in January 2000. During the first dance at their wedding reception, Elon whispered into Justine's ear, quote, "I am the alpha in this relationship."
Whoa.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, sweet nothings.
Oh
Um,
my god.
yeah. Justine claims, quote, "In the months following our wedding, a certain dynamic began to take hold. His judgment overruled mine, and he was constantly remarking on the ways he found me lacking." Justine said she would often tell him, quote, "I am your wife, not your employee." To which Elon would respond, quote, "If you were my employee, I would fire you." In
Wow.
2002, yeah. In 2002, Elon and Justine had their first child, a son named Nevada. Sadly, he died from sudden infant death syndrome when he was just
Oh.
10 weeks old.
Oh god.
According to Justine, after the death of their son, Elon said that Justine's grieving was, quote, "emotionally manipulative."
Okay.
Knowing that they wanted more children, they used IVF, and in April 2004, they welcomed twins Vivian and Griffin. In 2022, Vivian came out as transgender and filed a petition to change her gender and her name, which now included her mother's maiden name. Vivian listed the reason as, quote, "gender identity and the fact that I no longer live with or wish to be related to my biological father in any way, shape, or form."
Wow.
Elon blamed this entire thing on the quote, "woke mind virus" from Vivian's high school. He described his daughter as, quote, "a communist who thinks anyone rich is evil." I'm more likely to blame the fact that Elon has tweeted things like, quote, pronouns suck. In his defense, 6 months later, he tweeted, quote, I absolutely support trans. But then he finished the statement off with, quote, but pronouns are an aesthetic nightmare.
God.
I'd love to say that Elon's gotten better about it, but in June 2023, Elon said he would change Twitter's company policy so the words cis and cisgender would be considered slurs, meaning anyone using such a word would potentially get suspended. As of now, it doesn't look like he actually did, which isn't surprising because that man lacks follow through. But Elon can blame whoever he'd like for the estrangement between him and his daughter. But it's not much of a surprise when he publicly likes transphobic content on Twitter, including posts, that celebrated Louisiana banning gender affirming care for minors, or a post that was a picture of actor Elliot Page wearing a shirt that had been photoshopped to read sterilize autistic kids, which
Wow.
horror show.
Yeah.
After acquiring Twitter, which, we'll get into in the next episode, Elon removed the ban on misgendering and dead naming trans people, and then publicly suggested that anyone who provides gender affirming care for minors, quote, should go to prison for life. And thankfully, I don't know Elon personally, so I don't know if this is how he truly feels or if he's simply trying to gain attention from the hardcore conservatives. But either way, it cost him a relationship with his daughter. And because I could not go a single day during my research of this episode without Elon making headlines over something new, literally every day. It's madness. There was something that literally came out yesterday. Well, yesterday for us in the universe where we're recording this.
Yeah.
So, Elon did an interview with the Daily Wire where he proved every negative feeling that I've ever had about him. During the interview, Elon dead named his daughter, which I will not do. So, for the quote, I have taken it out. He said, quote, my son is dead, killed by the woke virus. He willingly dead named his own child repeatedly throughout that interview. And to be clear, Twitter, which used to be called Twitter, and then he changed the name to X, which we'll get into again later, he pouts and throws a fit when people call X Twitter.
Right.
But, dead names his child. Elon added, quote, I vowed to destroy the woke mind virus after that, and we're making some progress. And I just don't know if that's part of the reason that he has backed Trump for president or not, but
I think it is. Yeah.
I'm sure those things are related, and like the taxes he'll never have to pay, and how the
Yes.
rich just help the rich, that sort of thing. But did I see the news about this article and then adjust my notes just prior to recording this? Absolutely. Is more gross stuff going to come out about Elon after we record this? Yes, I almost guarantee it. Um, but just know, you have the pleasure of knowing that I tried to make this as up to date as humanly possible, but the man won't shut his mouth. So it makes my job very difficult.
Yes.
But moving on to more of his children. In January 2006, Elon and Justine continued with their IVF journey and welcomed triplets Kai, Saxon, and Damien. Justine said they were living a dream lifestyle with a full staff who catered to all their needs. But she said Elon lacked intimacy and empathy, so they started going to couples counseling in 2008. But just a month into it, Justine says that Elon gave her an ultimatum to either go back to how they were living before or get divorced. And without waiting for an answer, Elon filed for divorce the next day.
Interesting.
Elon then started dating actress Tallulah Riley. You may know her from her roles in Westworld and the 2005 classic Pride and Prejudice. Elon and Tallulah got married in 2010 and divorced in 2012. And because Elon absolutely cannot handle being alone, he then called director Robert Rodriguez and asked him to set Elon up with actress Amber Heard. A dinner was arranged, but Amber didn't show up because she was dating Johnny Depp at the time. Amber and Johnny, of course, got married and had a very public divorce, including a defamation trial, which is essentially a full episode of this show on its own.
Yeah.
So when things, didn't work out for him and Amber, Elon reunited with his ex-wife Tallulah, and they remarried in 2013
No way.
before divorcing for good in 2016. Fun fact, in 2024, Tallulah married actor Thomas Brody Sangster, aka the boy that Lauren dressed up as during our last holiday hootenanny.
Hey.
Yeah. So soon after getting divorced from Tallulah, Elon finally meets Amber Heard at the Met Gala in 2016. Weeks later, she filed for divorce from Johnny, and Elon and Amber were allegedly dating by July. Johnny Depp claims Amber and Elon secretly dated since 2015 when they were still married. Is that true? I mean, we're never going to know. Um, but it was said that Amber and Elon shared a bond over their shared, quote, intellectual curiosity and a love of science.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, the relationship fell apart by 2017. Then in May 2018, Elon started dating singer Claire Boucher, known better as Grimes. In May 2020, Elon and Grimes had a son, and we don't have time to get into the whole name debacle. We're just going to call the child X because his parents do.
Mm.
But the name is difficult to pronounce. It's so many different symbols. I have to let it go. But Grimes said, quote, "It was really profound to me when I decided I was going to actually go through with the act of unprotected sex. I just really love my boyfriend." So, I guess that means the baby was planned. You don't have to publicly tell us you raw dogged it to make a child. Like, we got it. We we got it.
Well, it's an interesting way of wording it, right? It was a profound decision for me to have unprotected sex, but I love my boyfriend. Like, it sounds like he didn't want to use protection, and so she didn't, and then they got pregnant. Like,
Oh, I mean, that's possible.
because if the baby was planned, most people would say, like, it was very profound for me to make the decision to have a baby.
Sure. I mean, in that same thing, she also went into basically like it's insane what women have to go through while having a child and like giving birth and pregnancy and all of that. And I'm like, uh-huh, we're not going to skate past this raw dog comment. Like, we're not letting it go.
Thank you
I,
for continuing to bring up raw dogging. That's what you get on True Crime and Cocktails that you don't get on the other podcasts, you know?
no, they're going to be adult and professional about it. Not here.
That's not what we bring to the
That's
table,
no,
folks.
not even close. Um, I it it's just I can't let the statement go of like just the act of unprotected sex as though they're the first people to make the choice. But to your point, it makes it sound like she didn't make it wasn't her choice, is kind of how it
Right.
sounds. But
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
um, but for those keeping track at home, that would be Elon's seventh child.
Right.
So we're just over halfway for children
Wow.
wise. Yeah. So Elon and Grimes broke up in September 2021, and 3 months later, they welcomed a daughter via surrogate. Her name is Exa Dark. I think that's how you say it. But her parents call her Y. because Y comes after X. I wish I was kidding.
Oh,
I wish I was kidding. Elon and Grimes have continued to be off and on ever since. Grimes describes their relationship as fluid, but has said that Elon is her best friend and the love of her life. In September 2023, they announced that they welcomed a third child via surrogate, a son named Techno, but they call him Tau.
okay.
Yep. And since things with Grimes were off and on, it explains why Elon had time to have children with another woman. Because a month before Elon and Grimes had their second child, which is only 2 months after they actually broke up, uh, Siobhan Zillis, an executive at one of Elon's companies, gave birth to twins Strider and Azur. Siobhan said, quote, "He really wants smart people to have kids, so he encouraged me to do this."
Ooh, that's troubling.
Yep. She added, quote, "I can't possibly think of genes I would prefer for my children." Yeah. Grimes admitted that she didn't find out about the twins until the public did. She
Ooh,
said Elon did not handle the situation well, and she was initially outraged. In the fall of 2023, Grimes tweeted that Siobhan had blocked her on all social media. However, that tweet has since been deleted, and Grimes now claims they have a great relationship, and she's very happy to be raising children with Siobhan in the picture.
right.
However, things seem to have taken yet another turn as Grimes and Elon are currently fighting over custody of their children. Elon sued Grimes for custody to, quote, "establish the parent child relationship between him and his children." 3 weeks later, she countersued. Her petition included a restraining order, which would prevent Elon from moving the children out of California without her permission. In October 2023, Grimes tweeted to Elon, quote, "Let me see my son or respond to my lawyer."
Ooh,
As of this record, the custody battle seems ongoing. Um, and there is no word about how Grimes feels about the fact that Elon and Siobhan welcomed a third baby at some point in 2024. The child's name and gender uh, has not been released. So, in total, as of this record, because I feel like it's going to change, Elon Musk has fathered 12 children with 3 different women over the span of 22 years. And while that seems like a lot, because it absolutely is, for comparison's sake, also as of this record, Nick Cannon has fathered 12 children with 6 different women in the span of just 11 years. I have not talked about a family with this many children since the Duggars episode.
right.
So, but when he gets teased, because he often does in the media, for having a large number of children, Elon says, quote, "Doing my best to help the underpopulation crisis. A collapsing birth rate is the biggest danger civilization faces by far." He even suggested that low birth rates were a bigger concern than global warming,
Oh boy.
which is a great time to point out that Elon is not a scientist. But of course, he wants to claim that he's doing something positive for the planet because his private jets certainly aren't helping with his carbon footprint. Because, yes, Elon owns 4 private jets and uses them for hundreds of flights a year, including 441 flights in 2023 alone. And that may seem extreme because it is. But the year before, Elon used his planes 739 times in a single year. So I guess, I mean, technically, he cut down from one year to the next. And the flights averaged about 2.5 hours. According to Business Insider, some of the trips were like 10 to 15 minutes.
No.
Like when he flew from an airport in Hawthorne, California to LAX, which is literally an 11-minute drive. I uh, to be clear, one of the biggest risks to civilization is climate change. I'm not a scientist, but I would absolutely say climate change is a bigger threat than low birth rates. A 2017 Swedish study, which involved actual scientists, revealed that having one fewer child per family could spare approximately 58.6 metric tons of carbon emissions each year in high income countries. But again, we aren't focusing on science today. We're focusing on a man who, in my opinion, is overhyped and terrible at picking up on social cues. Now, I told you that the information surrounding this man is massive. So even though we've split this into 2 episodes because it's so long, I still had to cut things. I'm not happy about it, but it had to get done, or else again, this would be like 4 or 5 episodes and I would wanna die. So, to lower your expectations of what's to come, because I don't want you going into that next episode being like, "Good, she's gonna mention all these things." I'm gonna present to you now a list of 12 things that are not gonna come up in the next episode. Number 1, Elon smoking pot on Joe Rogan's podcast, or even the fact that he was on that podcast to begin with. I'd like to avoid talking about Joe Rogan as much as humanly possible. And that I don't care. I don't need to see or think or talk about baby's first pot. You know what I mean?
No.
Not interested. Number 2, although this one I might regret not talking about, Elon releasing a rap track through his own record label in 2019, followed by an EDM track the following year.
No.
Yeah, yeah. Number 3, in 2022, Elon tweeted an incredibly unflattering photo of Bill Gates with a line, quote, "In case you need to lose a boner fast." A grown ass man tweeting about boners is ridiculous, especially when equally unflattering photos of Elon on vacation were posted 3 months later. I'm not body shaming. I'm just pointing out that Elon shouldn't be body shaming either.
Of course.
Number 4, one of the most ridiculous things ever to exist, Elon challenging Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg to a cage match.
Yes.
Number 5, the fact that there is an Instagram account called Elon Jet, whose sole purpose is to post whenever Elon uses his private planes. I'm also not going to get into the fact that Elon tried to accuse that account, which was created by a high school boy. Um, he accused the account of doxing him with information that is quite literally posted publicly. Like it's public information. So this account isn't doing anything. It's just posting already public information. Number 6, although I briefly touched on it, the fact that Elon recently, again, another fucking new thing that had to pop up. He recently endorsed Trump for president and claimed to be donating millions every month to the campaign. Think of what you could do with those millions.
Yeah.
Number 7, the fact that Elon bought thousands of acres of land outside of Austin, Texas in 2020 with the plan to build a company town called Snailbrook. I have so many questions. I actually, kudos on the name. Let's stop it. Number 8, and this is a big one, Elon Musk hosting SNL in May 2021. I'd like us all to forget.
Mm.
Number 9, Elon's Hyperloop dream. In fact, I'm gonna leave out anything pretty much involving the Boring Company, which got its name because it drills into the earth, not because they boiging. Um, but I will mention that for some reason the company started selling flamethrowers. They apparently cost $500. The company claimed they sold 10,000 in a single day. But for real, like in all seriousness, who needs a flamethrower? Excuse me. Who outside of Hank Scorpio needs a flamethrower? And yes, good catch. That was a Simpsons reference. Number 10 on the things I will not be talking about in the next episode, so lower your expectations. In October 2021, Elon tweeted, quote, thinking of starting a new university, Texas Institute of Technology and Science, because that means it would be tits for
Oh,
short. Hilarious. Again, this was publicly said by a 50-year-old man. Number 11. In February 2022, he tweeted and then quickly deleted a meme that compared Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to Hitler.
oh God.
And finally, number 12. The time that someone very beautifully referred to Elon as, quote, Space Karen. The amount of joy I got from hearing that knows no bounds, has no limits. Absolutely tickled pink. So, reporting for the first part of a two-part series, I'm ending this abruptly. Because
Well,
again, I
listen,
didn't plan to do this as a two-parter
of course.
until moments ago. We figured it out.
We did. Well, listen, let's all grab a drink, hit the can, and we're going to be back because there's lots to discuss about this Yahoo on the scandal Elon Musk Part 1 episode of True Crime and Cocktails. Lap 2 on 3. 1, 2, 3. Welcome back to the scandal Elon Musk Part 1 episode of the show. I got to tell you something. There's so much to talk about here. I feel like it's good that
Yeah.
we split this into 2 parts because I don't want, in a longer episode, I feel like we'd gloss over some of this potentially in this section of the show, and I really don't wanna gloss over any of
Oh,
my thoughts and
sure.
feelings. Um, Psychologist hat on. This is where I'm starting. The pattern of his father with women and the
Mm.
pattern of Elon with women. Listen, I don't think it takes a psychologist hat to say there's some
Yeah.
real similarities here and how fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you don't need a psychologist hat. You can do it in a 7-Eleven hat if you
Thank
want.
you very much.
Of
And
course.
that's what we do here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very kind of interesting to me that he's, of course, had this falling out with his father over the last several years. Um, he speaks negatively about his father growing up, about, how he was abusive and all of the above. Uh, and then this is one of the things that does fascinate me about the human mind is that he then kind of becomes the thing. Now, listen, I'm not suggesting that Elon Musk is like abusive to the same level as his father. I'm just saying that it's like the pattern of going from woman to woman. Um,
Hmm.
it's interesting again when the thing that you despise is the thing that you become, right? Like it's
Oh, sure.
interesting when and often is so many of us have those kinds of tendencies. It's through no fault of our own. I think that it is just a fascinating part of how the human brain works and that we can see this thing that we don't want to be and then we end up kind of becoming a version of that and like how wild and why is that so common? But again, that's why I'm an enthusiast of the psychology arts. Um
Sure.
Again, the fact that his mother, May, was like, "Oh, it wasn't the multiple affairs that made me leave him, it was how terrible he was to me," is also, again, just so indicative of what we're talking about here, you know?
Yeah.
The fact, again, that he was so vindictive, that he had so much money, but then May had to work all kinds of jobs to try and, like, make ends meet. What's also interesting about that to me is that when people do that, when you hear about those stories, it's like, why do you want your children to suffer? That's something I would
Mm.
never and listen, I don't have my children. I don't have my any children. But I can't wrap my head around that. That it's like, I wanna make my ex-wife's life hell or vice versa.
Sure.
Um, no, they have to know that that's gonna negatively impact the kids. Like, I don't understand the mentality. I mean, I understand when people get so combative in divorces and then they stop being rational and then it becomes et cetera, et cetera. But at this point, he's having multiple affairs. He's treating her terribly. It's like, and then the divorce happens and you want to continue to treat her badly and therefore affect your children. Like that's where
Oh,
it's I think that lack of self-awareness that's always troubling, right? That it's like,
yeah.
do you really still view her as a villain even though you treated her that poorly? Are you unable to look at the fact that you've done bad things? Like it's just it's fascinating to me. Um now, now, Errol and Jana.
Oh, yep.
This is again obviously shades of Woody Allen.
Oh,
We're of course hearing this similar refrain. I mean, I don't even know where to begin on this. Yeah, I think it's interesting that you also pointed out the kind of like contradiction that he was saying, "Oh, I didn't really raise her. She was raised elsewhere." And then later it's like, "I wasn't giving her special attention. I was giving the same attention to all my children." It's like, "So which is it then, man?" Because at this point,
it
do you know what
can't
I
be
would
both.
prefer? What I would prefer? Honesty.
Hey.
Honesty. It's disgusting. It's
Yep.
creepy. I don't wanna hear it in my life, or in my
No.
ears, but I just mean, like, I would at least have some I feel like there's at least something to be said for just admitting the truth.
Sure.
So if the truth is, yeah, I always felt a connection with her and it's really, as adults, we reconnected and the connection existed. Disgusting, wrong. I don't support it at
Correct.
all. I'm just saying that being honest about it instead of trying to pretend that it's like, "Oh, I didn't really have a relationship with her. Oh, I guess I really did, but no, there wasn't anything." Like, come on.
Yeah.
How do you know her? Like, the jig is up to begin with, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you know her because she was a child that would you raised for a time, or there was
Yeah.
a ch she was how about this? We'll take a step back. How do you know her? She's the daughter of a woman you were married to for a long time.
Yes.
So,
Oh, yeah.
you can't fool us. Like, we all know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's disgusting, and just say it. Just say it.
Yeah. Oh, I think, like his son, just doesn't want to say anything to appear as though he's done something wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
Because if he ever says like, "Oh, I get it," like it's gross, like then he's admitting what he did was wrong. Whereas he's
Right.
like, "What's the problem? I barely knew the woman. I was comforting her. We were lost, lonely people. One thing led to another. It's biological. Fuck off, man.
Yeah.
Gross.
Stop it.
Gross." Like it's yeah, I just don't think he'd ever admit anything negative. Because
No.
then maybe he'd have to look internally,
Of course.
and that would be
Of course.
terrifying for him.
Yeah, it would be terrifying for all of us to look internally in that man.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
again, the story that he shot multiple home invaders, killing 2 with 1 bullet, like, being able to fend them off, like, it's interesting again, just in the building of the profile, which is what I do every week on this show. It is my favorite thing. But it's just again, it's very interesting, like, it feels like delusions of grandeur. It feels like there is a real kind of sense of and look, is it possible that that story is true? I mean, yes. I mean, he was charged. There was some sort of court case, so it feels like there has to be some truth to it. Um, it's just again, it's interesting to be like, I dodged bullets essentially, and then killed 2 men with 1 bullet. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I wouldn't really be bragging about it. First of all, and second of
No.
all, um, feels maybe if not embellished, then it feels like wearing it as a badge of honor is just as much a part of creating a psychological profile about this man as anything else, you know?
Oh, 100%. I believe if it happened at all, 1, maybe 2 people, like,
Right,
tried to enter the home.
right.
But then I'm also like, if I can look deeper, were they just random people breaking into a random house? Or what did you do to them that they came
Right.
after you?
Right.
Because
Great
I just
question.
don't trust that he was a solid person. I mean, who knows? Maybe it was random, but maybe it wasn't.
Yeah.
I just don't
Uh,
believe it was 7 people.
no. I just it seems again, I don't know. I have question marks there for sure. Uh Now Tosca having this passion flicks,
Yeah.
movies for women. My question is, do they have a section for paranormal romances?
Oh, that bringing it back around. I
Had
hope
to.
so. I hope
Had to.
so. Because
Yeah.
I'm also now like, shit. In all of my, if I may, smut reading, um, I've done like the regular smut where like they're both people. And then I've done the one where like one is like a fae and one is a human. And for some reason, God, I love that. The fae are just so strong and brooding. Anyhow, um, and I mean the current one I've got is he's not quite fae, but he's not quite human. I don't really know what's happening. It shocked me when the word cock came out because they don't often just drop it like that, and I didn't know what to do with myself. Also because I thought the book was young adult, and then that was the moment I realized it was adult. But now I'm like, where are the paranormal romance books?
Oh, wow. Well, you're putting it out there, and guess what? We have a legion of devoted listeners that I'm sure have all read
Yeah.
any paranormal romances. And listen, dear listeners, comment on a post somewhere. Get the names of these books to dear Christy because she's looking for something very specific, and I'm
Yeah.
so sure that there are some of you out there who share this love for paranormal romance. Which again,
Oh,
I
there
can't.
has to be. Again, I don't know if it was specifically Hallmark, but the Christmas movie, The Spirit of Christmas, where a woman falls in love with a fucking ghost.
Yeah,
That's
I
another
remember it.
one.
Yeah.
And I that's a rewatcher. Like I watch that every year.
I think you may have had me watch that one with you.
Yeah, because he's like he's everything you want a Faye to be. And I've said what I've said. He's just very slightly gruff, but very polite, very brooding. You know he hurts inside, but God, he's never gonna let you go. Like I so but that one can go on the that can go on the paranormal romance list. Ah shit. Yeah, I'm gonna write that down.
Write it down.
Yeah.
The quote, Kimball is just Elon in a cowboy hat. I feel like that really sums up that person and makes a lot of sense to me. Uh, okay. So Elon badly bullied as a child, also bullied by Errol, his father.
Hmm.
Interesting that he chose to live with his abusive father because he had the computer, and his mother didn't. Uh, Also interesting that he moved to Canada to go to Queens, got his Canadian citizenship, and then moved to the States, like, very close to like, soon after. It's interesting to me.
It
Uh,
seems like I don't know if he specifically chose Canada first, but it felt like he did it and got his citizenship because that would make it easier to get an American
and
citizenship.
it feels like his parents were Canadians, right? So that they were
His
Canadians that
mother,
moved,
yeah.
yeah, to South Africa. So his
Yeah.
father wasn't a Canadian?
I think his father is like born and bred South African.
Oh,
I
got it, got
think.
it, got it. Of course.
But
Yes,
then, but
sorry.
yes, his mother was
That's
Canadian,
right.
so that would have
I
also helped.
skipped I skipped a generation in my remembering. Got it.
I
Uh
often forget Errol when we talk
Oh,
about
it's the
this
best way to
family.
be.
Yep.
Best way to be. Um, okay. There's so much to get into here. Whispering to your new wife during your first dance, "I am the alpha," is a true nightmare. I feel like I would laugh. Like I wouldn't even know what I'm like, this is a bit, right? Like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Um, again, okay. So the woke mind virus stuff
Mm.
is stuff that I've also been seeing recently. I think it's because he pumps out his own tweets on X, on
Of
Twitter.
course he does.
So it's like everybody sees them, I feel like. I feel like you're kind of forced to if you're on there. I'm really on the fence with I think I might just delete my subscription, whatever it is, my account. There it is. It really feels uh Well, first of all, it's just odd. But second of all, it just feels so dark to me because it is in connection to his own child. And I saw the video where he was dead naming his child, and it just felt like, you know, it's so interesting to me because the whole idea that he had like liked the photo of Elliot Page in the sterilized autistic kids shirt
Mm.
is interesting to me for a couple reasons because A, yes, Elliot Page is trans, so it's like, is it like in his mind, was that kind of like an anti-trans post? And then what's interesting about that is that I was under the impression that Elon Musk is on the spectrum. I thought that he was
Is he?
I I thought that he was open about that. But I
Huh.
also I don't I mean, listen, I mean, you did mention a couple of times also that he does have issues with social cues, which of course is
Yes.
obviously one of the traits, um, for people with on the spectrum. Um, so definitely I thought he had spoken about it, but then the more I thought about it, I was like, is and this is the problem with social media. I'm like, has he come out as saying that he is diagnosed or believes that he is on the spectrum, or am I just remembering what people have perceived him as? I don't know the answer to that is the point. I thought that it was that he was open about having autistic spectrum disorder, being on the spectrum, some sort of,
Huh.
I thought that he was open about that. But that being said, I also don't know. It may be that I'm commenting on what other people are commenting on, which by the
Sure.
way, if he hasn't come out about it, then is it appropriate to be speculating? No, like we're if we don't know him and what have you, I mean, now I know that's ironic coming from somebody who loves to give out, psychological diagnoses to killers.
Sure.
But again, those are killers. Those are people that have killed people who I feel
Of
like,
course.
that's a kind of a different thing. I only bring it up because it's interesting if he has said publicly that he identifies as being on the spectrum slash has been diagnosed with that. Why would you like a photo saying sterilize autistic kids? That makes
Yeah.
no sense to me.
I mean, I'll say it. I've been so deep reading so many things about this man for so many days in a row, that I had to take what he doesn't listen to the show, but Mr. Andrew Gallagher calls a brain break when you
Mm,
just feel like you just need to walk away for like 10 minutes and come back. And I had to do something else. Um, and circle back because there's just so much, but nowhere in there, and I mean, it also comes down to what specifically you're searching for. Nowhere in there did I ever come across anything about any sort of if he's on a spectrum of any kind. Um, but I mean, whether he is or not, I just would like to say I wasn't saying he's not great with social cues for the sake of like making a stab or some sort of jab at anybody on the spectrum. So my apologies if it came out that way. Um, I guess what I'm just saying is he doesn't know how to just be a human being. Like he can't just
it feels
emote
like it's
in a
something
way.
else.
Like it
Right,
feels like it's on purpose. But yeah, I
right.
don't know if he is on the spectrum or not. Not again, I didn't. I think I would have had to specifically Google that maybe to see if that came up. But again, my apologies for how that came out. It was not meant that way. But yes, if you are on the spectrum, it's weird to like a post
Right.
that's insulting people on the spectrum.
Oh, and also it goes without saying, but like that whole messaging is horrific.
Oh,
Sterilize
a
autistic kids. Oh my
hundred
god.
percent.
Like that's it's also like it's not like not that there's any joke that's appropriate. I'm not suggesting that, but it's so dark. Like it's
Oh
such an
yeah.
intense thing to like I don't know, seeing something like that would like make my stomach turn just seeing it. The
Yeah.
idea of then being like, yeah, liking it. Like what are we
Oh,
doing here? But that's also interesting, right? Because I think that this is part of the reason why whether we like it or not, he's a fascinating individual because he's
Sure.
created these unbelievable businesses, which I'm
Yeah.
not saying are all run in an ethical way. I'm not saying everything that's happening is ethical
Mhm.
at all. Again, tune in next week for more. I'm
Yeah,
not suggesting that, but I think there's something that is he he does draw you in. It there is something
sure.
about this person that's like, what's his deal? Because it feels like it isn't as cut and dry as a specific diagnosis. It feels like, and this is one of the things we love on this show, when we deep dive into the childhood and his father and what his father was like and all of that, it adds another layer that makes him so kind of compelling as a human because it's like, well, wait a second. Maybe there's another layer that is, you know, can lend some sort of context for why you are the way you are. Um, and again, there's comments here throughout that are troubling, I think, and I know that we're kind of just getting started. The idea that it's like I'm doing my best to repopulate the world, that
Mm,
the biggest problem that the world is underpopulation. I mean, we know that he's not a scientist, and I would just add also that it's like the world is so overpopulated. I mean, there's so
yeah.
much data to back that up. And even though birth rates have gone down in certain places, et cetera, it still hasn't changed the fact that the world is in a overpopulation crisis and it has been for years. That's something that again I feel like I'm not a scientist, but I've just read so much
Yeah.
about. It's interesting to me that he really has this kind of view of the world that feels not only inaccurate, but in some ways dangerous. This isn't necessarily just a different viewpoint. It's kind of I'll say it, troubling. Um, and the piece that really stuck out to me about that is him having these twins with Siobhan, who is an executive that worked for him. And her saying, I'm paraphrasing here, but she said something about he really wants smart people to have kids. And
Yeah.
he convinced me of it. Something along those lines.
Yes. He
That's
approached a woman who works for one of his companies and said, "You should have children because smart people should have children. Let's have kids." And she went, "Okay." Which, okay. I mean, it was highly inappropriate for him to approach you with that
well, I mean, this is also
offer,
like
but it
getting
was
into
up to her.
the workplace and him being in a position of power. He has a lot of money. I understand if she's an executive, then she may have a certain amount of power and money, et cetera, as well. But we would be remiss if we didn't also point out that it's like that's a very kind of beyond inappropriate into like
Mm.
terrible position to put somebody in.
And the fact that it was done so quietly and done
Yeah.
while you were expecting a baby with someone else,
Yeah.
because him and Grimes broke up 2 months before those babies were born, and then a month later, his baby with Grimes was born.
Right.
One of his babies.
It just feels, yeah. Again, like it feels like this is like I said, it just feels like there's another element to him that is not under any diagnosis. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Whether that's present or not. It just feels like there's this other very kind of um troubling is the word that just keeps coming to mind. Just the idea that it's like you're approaching people being like, "You're smart, we should have children together." And then saying like, "We need to
yeah,
repopulate the earth," you know, where he's not saying in the same sentence, but what it feels like he's implying is we need to repopulate the earth with more smart people.
yeah,
And then we start to get into like, well, that's a methodology and way of thinking that is tied to so many things we don't have time to get into. Uh,
yeah,
but when you're starting to talk about creating a generation of what he deems to be smarter people,
yeah,
it's not great. It's not certainly a methodology that we've seen over the course of history that has turned out well for anybody. Um,
yeah,
so again, I think that these are the kinds of like interesting things to note and kind of put a pin in and to remember when we go into the next week's episode and continue on about the businesses and all of those things. It's just a very interesting he's just an interesting guy, whether we like it or not. Because again,
Oh,
it's like to have gotten as famous as he is also. If you want to like condemn the Kardashians, for example, because people will often say, like, well, what are they famous for? They're just famous for being famous. Like they came from money. That's it. It's like, well, then we have to condemn him too, because
yeah,
it's the exact same thing.
100%.
Right? Now, I know one could argue that it's like, well, he started these big companies and he became famous because of that, et cetera. Okay, sure, that's a difference, arguably. But is there a difference between Elon Musk starting massive companies and Kris Jenner starting massive companies?
No.
Sure, Kris Jenner's companies are tied to her children and makeup brands and clothing brands and all of the above and not doing the same kind of innovations that Elon Musk is. But to suggest that there is like lesser value in a woman starting, her own businesses and her own empire from the ground up, I think is really diminishing to um and listen, I know that people are like, you're defending Kris Jenner in this moment, but I think what it is, and look, there are things that I also don't defend in that family, to be clear, but I think it's just an interesting thing to note because again, it's like Elon Musk is dating. He's seeking out Amber Heard. He sought her out. He's dating Grimes. He's dating these young Tallulah. He's dating these young famous women, right? And it's like again, if we're gonna condemn the Kardashians for it, we need to condemn him too. He's engaging in the same kind of behavior.
Yeah. Oh, all of the women that he surrounds himself with, gorgeous.
Yeah, of course, because
So
he's
it's
rich
like
and
not a
powerful and all of
surprise.
the above, and that's a
Yeah.
tale as old as time, unfortunately. But I think again, it's like I just think that the Kardashians, again, it's just the only example I can think of on the other side off the top of my head where it's like, again, we're condemning them for their use of their private planes, et cetera. And it's like, yeah, like
Right.
let us not forget that this guy's doing the same stuff. Like, is it better because he's someone that is like, working on space travel and created the Tesla? I don't think that makes it any better. I think it's the same thing.
No.
Um,
No.
Anyway, and again, and kudos to Kris Jenner for starting an empire because as far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned, she did. And whether you like it or
Oh,
you
she
don't,
did.
what you can't deny is that that woman is a smart business lady and we should be celebrating women who are able to create something out of nothing. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Um okay, 12 children with 3 women in 22 years. The comparison with Nick Cannon was also staggering. The fact that Nick
Yeah.
Cannon has the same amount of children but in half the time and double the women. Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah.
And again, then you did get into, again, him using these private jets as much as they did, sometimes for 15 to 20-minute rides. I mean, I can't. You have a car service. Like,
Yeah.
just have someone drive you. I'm not saying you gotta drive yourself. You don't wanna drive? Respect. There's no way you don't
Yeah.
have access to a driver.
Oh, yeah. You own
Alright.
Tesla.
You own Tesla.
You have
It's
access to so many vehicles.
by the way, self-driving cars. So there you go.
Oh, I wouldn't.
No, I can't wait till we get into all of that. Um, all right, the list of 12 things you won't talk about. We just
Yeah,
have to go through a couple of these real quick before we
of
wrap this up.
of
The
course.
Joe Rogan pot thing, I hear you. Him releasing a rap track in 2019 and an EDM track in 2020, I have not heard either, and I unfortunately am gonna immediately have to listen to both of these upon ending this recording because this is
Yeah,
wild.
yeah.
Um,
Apparently, the EDM track involves, lyrics performed by and written by Elon,
no.
which
Does
I'm
he
just
rap
like,
on the rap track?
I assume? I don't know. I was
We're gonna
scared
have
to
to find it.
go down that rabbit hole.
Um, all of these are great. Yes, the unflattering picture of Bill Gates. Yes, it felt like it was like, what's happening right now?
Mm,
Uh, Challenging Zuckerberg to a cage match. Wild. The Jet account, I remember that as well. Endorsing Trump, the millions of dollars every month. Yeah. And it's interesting because I did see that clip and I think I saw another clip as well that was along the same lines. And he was kind of intimating that, like, yes, I'm going to give all of this money to Donald Trump because I don't because the trans thing is the woke mind virus. Like he was
yeah.
making that direct connection, I believe, in one of the clips that I saw. And I was like, that is wild to me. the the thousands of acres of land called Snailbrook. Again, you're right. Clever name. It's one of the greater things he's done. No
Oh,
one wants to
I'm
remember
here
him
for it.
hosting SNL. Not at all. Hyperloop. Yes. Oh, the meme of Trudeau. Space Karen is
Yeah.
a beautiful thing.
Oh, I couldn't be happier, and I out loud praise the person that started it
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because, yes, he has the full Karen energy, whereas if you say one thing he doesn't like, even if it's true, he throws a fit.
Yeah.
Like all the times that people call Twitter, Twitter,
Right.
instead of calling it X like he loves, even though just stop.
Just stop.
Stop, man.
Just stop. Well, listen, Christy Oxborrow, fantastic work as always. I am looking forward to next week. Mostly just because I know I'm going to rage out even harder about the business practices because I do know a little bit about this. Not everything, I'm sure, but I do know a little bit. And wowzer, that is going to be an angry one, I'm sure. So I look forward to
Yeah.
that.
Oh, it's again, it's a good reason that we cut this in half
Yeah,
because there's a lot. Do I want to keep talking about him for another full episode? No,
yeah,
but there's just so much.
yeah,
And I almost guarantee by the time we record that, something else will have come out
yeah,
because every single day for the last week and a half,
yeah.
something new has come out about him. He's doing something. He doesn't stop, but he loves that. He loves being out. He loves having the attention. He loves the idea of being a hero for the planet because him alone is going to repopulate this place. I,
Again, I said it about his father. Now I'll say it about him. Delusions of grandeur.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And we thank you, dear listeners, for joining us on this journey today. If you haven't already, give us a follow on the socials on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at True Crime and Cocktails, on Twitter at Not Detectives. If you'd like some bonus content, go over to patreon.com/, True Crime and Cocktails. There's so much over there. We've got monthly lives that we do, bonus episodes. So check that out if you're interested. And of course, our merch store, I'm hoping to have it back open within the next couple of weeks. It is truecrewmerch.com. There is access currently for our Patreon users. There's a secret code to get in that you can get in if you're a Patreon member. And truly, I'm doing that just to protect myself and our livelihood. So
Yeah.
just know that we're doing the best we can. I am at the mercy of the banks at this point. Anyway, next episode, we don't need to get into it. We've already been talking about it this entire time. Of course, we're going to come back for more about Elon Musk. The scandal Elon Musk part 2 episode is next week on the show. So join us back here for that. Christy, do you want to say goodnight to the people?
Good night, 7-Eleven Canada.
Good night, Kyle Reese.